Join the channel here, become a member over at Subscribe. Be sure to join the Odyssey and Rumble. Those are clones. They sync everything up automatically. So be sure to get on Rumble. So, Woman King didn't win an Oscar. It was obviously robbed. So what happened? I know this has got to be kind of a quick video because I know what videos people don't watch, but and yet I want to make this video anyway because it's just so. It feels like there's something here, but I also know it's a video that's going to get like 80 views. So what happened is one movie won an award and two other films didn't. You know, in a perfect world, that shouldn't be a big deal, but unfortunately, we're very, very far from that. And the other aspect of this, well, this is Hollywood. You accelerate the decline, the destruction of Hollywood as much as possible. So what happened was The Woman King until I did see some of The Woman King. It you can't even say, okay, well, the actors were good, the sets were good, the sound was good, the audio, you know, all that kind of stuff, the blocking and like the technical aspects of a film, even the creative aspects. Like, okay, it's very, very good. That's fine. Or it's at least competent. But the underlying storyline, it's just too ridiculous. You just can't say, how do I review a movie where like, oh yeah, everything is technically fine. The actor is compelled emotion. I thought I was in a movie. I mean, they set the scene. But the underlying theme is just so. It's like we flapped our arms and we flew to the moon. Was this like a Jules Verne type of story? No, no, it's based on history of the Dahomey tribe because that's a real tribe. The history is actually out there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but you didn't tell the actual history? No, no, no. It's a fictional reimagining. But you guys made yourself the good guys in the English and the French, the bad guys. Yeah, that's right. It's a fictional reimagining. But I mean, that's just propaganda. Like most people, most adults, we look at that and we just see propaganda, and that's why it bombed because everything else was fine. It's just you flapped your arms and you flew to the moon. That's just as ridiculous as it was. Anyway, so A Woman King until both movies that underperformed, which isn't dispositive of awards. Fair enough. Movies can bomb and still be good movies if they just have the wrong type of marketing. But it is relevant. If stuff really doesn't connect with an audience, then it's kind of saying something. So what happened? What happened is the makers of these films, which I think you can fairly enough call them woke, are upset and they think the films deserve to win. And that the reason those films didn't was because they were pox people making the movies and in the movies, I guess. Now, I'm curious because I'm almost positive that pox are overrepresented in winning awards because they said this a couple years ago about, what was it, the Oscars, right? The Oscars Academy. They said Oscars so white. And then so somebody ran the numbers and they said, no, actually, you're slightly overrepresented in winning awards. Specifically, the Sunny community is slightly overrepresented. And then nobody comes out and really says that loudly because they don't want to get yelled at social media and they don't want to get canceled. So it's just like they allowed this false narrative to kind of continue that the Oscars are so white. It's like, but objectively, you could do a little research in the past few years and you can prove it yourself. It's like they're really not. Look at the awards presented and who won those awards. You said an objectively false statement, and we're in the situation now where people are saying these objectively false statements, and there's not enough people who are willing to kind of raise their hands and go, wait a minute, like the stuff you guys are saying is, what do you mean, you guys? You get the idea. Like you're gonna get destroyed on social media, so the stuff just carries out. Anyway, so their claims don't seem to be backed up by data, and it seems a wee little bit like, I mean, you know, to be fair, neither one of these, all three of these movies are not, you know, our kind of movies. They seem like sour grapes a little bit. So here's the thing with The Woman King. The puppet masters don't want to bring any more attention to it because it's a story about the Dahomey tribe, an African tribe that was a unpaid servant dealing tribe who routinely committed mass horrible acts, mass malamensei acts against other African tribes. They deleted them on the largest of scale, men, women, and children, and they had large-scale human appeasements to the gods, you know, like the Aztecs did, and they also had cannibalism. So there's really no way to soft pedal it, or more importantly for Hollywood, to shift the blame to the French or the English, because the Europeans literally fought the Dahomey tribe to get them to stop taking and selling unpaid servants. and there's this myth on Twitter that the African unpaid servants were more like family. No, seriously, it's a few moments of research and you'll see the atrocities they committed. That is a myth that you might as well put to bed very quickly. Like you might as well deal with the truth. Don't lying to somebody else is one thing, but lying to yourself. Like if you really have this false narrative of oh, it's a roots version of African history. It's like, well, you should probably read the history behind Roots and the lawsuit that followed. It was a plagiarized book based on an earlier book, I think, written in 1918 called either The African or the Ethiopian or something like that. The guy sued and lost for the guy was sued for plagiarism, and the writer, I forget the writer of Roots, had to pay the settlement, which would be millions of dollars in today's money. But it's like it didn't affect that a TV show was made out of it. A TV show was made out of a fictional book. It's like, well, okay, it was fictional, and it influenced so many people who watched the TV show or read the book, and they think, and they nowadays you get the book, and there's a disclaimer at the front of the book. They have to say it's a plagiarized book. And you're like, well, what's the point of even printing the book anymore? Well, it's fiction. Just view it as fiction. But it was passed off as historical fact, and he lied, like very clearly plagiarized entire chapters from an earlier book. I mean, it's just as bad as it sounds. Anyway, so there's no way to shift the blame to the Europeans because they fought the Dahomey to stop them. Hollywood has no interest in bringing attention to that because their goal is 100% to spread anti-European hate. You got to be kind of aware of that by now. The true history does not fit their narrative. So they made the movie, but they turned the story around. They said the Dahomey were reluctant to trade people as the human cargo, and they really wanted to deal palm oil instead of humans. That was the bizarre movie version. The real history tells an entirely different story. They very much wanted to stay with what they were good at, was people, the trade of people who look remarkably like them. It's a 1984 reimagining of an actual and recent history. You might as well retell any other version of history you want and just turn the motivations upside down so that your side can magically be the good guys. Even for current year cultural Marxists, the Woman King was a bridge too far for people because I mean the history was out there and they're looking back and forth between the movie and the history and like, this is insane. Why didn't anyone stop you? Why didn't anyone, if you're one of the actors and you look at the script and you go, I should probably do a little research into this tribe. And then you read the research and you talk to the director and the producer's like, what's going on? How are you going to sell this? This is bizarre. It's a paycheck to them, but at some point things are so bad you don't want to be involved with the movie. But the Star Wars guy was in it probably because, after Star Wars is kind of a curse for a lot of people. Anyway, so that was just a bridge of ridiculously a little too much, and I can't imagine what they were thinking when they decided to sit down and script the movie and like, okay, here's the actual history of the tribe. Okay, why don't we reimagine it and just got to be just mountains of pharmaceutical enhancements on that table, and they're just Bolivian marching powder their way to coming up with these. I got these great creative ideas. Is it you or is it the pharmacology talking? And then when that wears off, you're like, oh shit, we made a movie. Well, the hydrochloride made a movie. Did they think like nobody was paying attention, that people wouldn't notice? I mean, Clown World, we're pretty deep, but it only goes so far. I mean, it doesn't take but 5 minutes on social media to read the history of this thing. So they keep making the accusations of inequality, but at least in the awards given, well, there isn't any. At least for black movies, they get awards. They're slightly overrepresented in the awards they get. There is no inequality in those kind of movies. Unless they're saying they want overrepresentation, are they saying their movies are so much better than the standard Hollywood movies that they need more awards? Hey, I'm not going to argue with them because, I'm not too up on Hollywood because, to me it's all garbage. So if their claim is that there's not enough pox on the Academy board, then I totally agree with them on that issue because anything that accelerates the destruction, by all means, fire the people on the board who vote and replace them with these pox, woks, SJWs. Please, then they'll give awards to stuff like Woman King, which is just a garbage film, and hopefully it'll help awaken people to the idea that Hollywood is over. Like, not in a hyperbolic statement. I mean, it's okay to just look at the entirety of Hollywood and admit, yeah, they're just too freakishly weird to support anymore. And as for Till not winning an award, well, that was a film that focused on the mom and not the kid. That doesn't make sense. It's like the Black Panther Part 2 where they made the movie without the titular character. It's not what the audience wants to focus on. The primary character is the focus. You tell the Till story, but you skip the main character. And the thing is, these are why these two movies are kind of problematic for the left, because even the story is probably not as it seems. I did a video for Odyssey on this several months ago, and I went into the background of the story. There's much more to it than you think, and he's not a hero, and he's not a hapless victim, probably. But, it was a long time ago, like knowing what really happened. People want to imagine what happened, but when you look at the facts, you're like, you know what? We're probably never going to know. Because for the left, they're in this position of believe all women, except sometimes we don't believe all women, and that makes them look like jackasses. It's the very reason that we have due process. The idea isn't to arbitrarily believe one party over another because of their sex. The idea is to present evidence and determine what actually happened. So keep in mind with Till, the woman who is the victim of Till still has an outstanding accusation against him. That accusation wasn't magically wiped away when a group of guys deleted Till and it was a mixed race group of men. It's possible that you just have two bad acts. One doesn't wash away the other one. The accuser of Till is not responsible for his later demise. She wasn't involved in it. She wanted to keep the story from people. Some other kids told the story. It's two different legal events, and she never changed her story. Some writer later wrote a book where he claimed that she did, so the FBI had to investigate because it would be a matter of perjury on a capital case. It would be a felony, right? So the FBI goes to investigate based on what the reporter found, and she said the reporter lied, and then they go back to the reporter and go like, well, you recorded the interview and you're taking notes, so can we hear the recording where she made this claim? And he goes, oh, I don't have the recording of that. Okay, well, did you take any notes? Sometimes, notes can be offered into evidence. And he goes, oh, I don't have any notes on it. So he doesn't have any evidence. I mean, the whole thing is like he made it up to sell a book, obviously. So for the left-wing narrative, it's got to be that she recanted her story, but she never did. So they're caught. I mean, even to the point of the FBI had to go investigate, release an official finding, and then tell the press, yeah, we're not going to go further on the case because there's no evidence to go forward with. So they're caught in this conundrum of, well, we believe all women, but not in the case of a pox man committing a struggle snuggle, which is what he was accused of, or something along those lines, which oddly enough his father had committed in Italy. His father had attacked two women and deleted them. And the military gave him a trial. He was found guilty, and he himself was deleted. Now, the son's not the father, but it's an interesting point, at least in the court of public opinion, which so many of these things are fought in. Anyway, I totally agree with them that the whole academy should be, by all means, make it woke, SJW, poxwalks, BLT women who are mad at their dads. Anything that helps burn Hollywood down, the more bad movies you get out of Hollywood, I totally support that. My point with both of these films is that in their own way, they cause problems for this anti-white Hollywood narrative because they don't want people to investigate the true story of either events. And, things are a little, the Dahomey tribe that is very, very clearly laid out. Like that movie, for them, from their perspective, never should have been made. It was a bizarre turn of events that they thought they would make that movie. The Till thing, it's a little bit, you could investigate it and you could come to a different conclusion. A reasonable person could come to a different conclusion on that. But they don't want people to investigate these events. Because a lot of times it turns out to be a George Floyd situation where, yes, the guy got deleted or he had an OD, depending on what side of the aisle you want to be on, or it was a combination of both. But when you look at his brutal criminal history, and then you see these icons of this guy, and you're like, what kind of world is this where you're putting statues of a guy who committed this long criminal history, like this is the hero? Well, I mean, it's not a society that's going to have a civilization for long, but you're wondering like what the fuss is all about. Like this is no guy. There should be no statues or icons of him or murals. He was a scumbag, and most people look at Chauvin and Floyd and they feel like they're both where they need to be. The left wing has this habit of picking the worst heroes, or picking, it's like making movies about things where it's like they want to present it in one limited scope and they don't want you doing any more investigation or asking any questions about, oh, so this Dahomey tribe, let's take a look. No, don't investigate. Why not? Because like this story is so bizarre. I mean, it's so 1984. I look at everyone involved with that and think, what's the color of the sky in your world where you make these movies like based on real events and then you just turn it upside down? I mean, is the self-awareness really that low? It's just freaking bizarre. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys all on Rumble and Odyssey.